I have to assume it's on their end.
We're live.
Like we're live.
Okay, great. I'm just waiting for it to come up so I can pause it and not get that crazy duplication here. Great. All right, so we are live. Thank you everyone for joining another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross Project Council meeting. Today is October 15th, 2019. Today's issue is 348. Folks, please add yourselves to the Google Doc for attendance. I'll drop the link in there for anyone. And let's start things off with any announcements.
Just a quick reminder that we're having a jQuery infrastructure meeting on Thursday, October 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern for anybody who would like to assist project with infrastructure improvements. Also a reminder that next week on Tuesday is our bi-weekly standards working group meeting. Please join us if you are so inclined.
Great. And there is an issue open for that infrastructure meeting. I dropped it into the chat. It's issue number 345. I'm getting bugged by a bee. All right. Any other updates or announcements before we get into the agenda? I'm thinking particularly about the board or anything foundation related.
Yeah, I guess so. Not this Friday, but the following Friday is the board meeting. So if anybody has anything that they think should be brought up, make sure it's on the board. I do have a couple of things, the travel fund and the update to the project progression that, you know, I've sent out to get the OKs or at least no objections from the board as appropriate. Still don't have closure on those two, but did follow up late last week and we'll continue to follow up on those. So hopefully I'm hopeful in the next week or so, we'll get those closed out. Great.
There's one more thing that is, I guess, with legal. So I don't know if it's necessarily a board thing, but the add a draft charter template has been open for a while, but I think it's been at legal review for a little bit.
Is Brian on? I think that's in his bulb.
Yeah, I thought we were good with the text that we have.
That's the, I just put the pull request into the chat. It's pull request 279. And, you know, not that this is pressing, I was just going through things earlier.
But yeah, we definitely should, I seem to have the same recollection, Brian, but I don't know that if that was captured anywhere.
Captured about 1 second ago when I said this draft is good to go.
Okay. Okay.
Real-time progress. Yeah,
right.
It's ready to go. There were no issues with that.
Okay, so let's see. So you added a comment, and so should we squash and merge? Seems like it, right? So I will go ahead.
I think so. Yep.
I'm clicking those buttons. Great, merged. So the draft charter template is now in there. Thank you, Jory, for working that out, and for everyone for pushing on it. Woohoo! Yay!
And I'll move that into done, and there we go.
Great. Thank you. Excellent. So anything else we want to talk about before we get into the agenda? No? Okay, great. And I'll just mention again that we're going to cut the meeting a little bit short for a private session, probably about 15 minutes early. But we don't have a very heavy agenda here, so that should be no issue. Lots of progress. So the first issue, the first item in our agenda is issue 331. This is administering project applications. And let's see. Where are we with this? I feel like we keep talking about this, but I'm not sure if it's covered anywhere. We just need a pull request for Toby's comment, clarity as to who the project's champion is would be great. Totally opaque from the applicant's perspective.
If I recall correctly, that was an action item that we identified maybe last week or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, where Michael and Miles and I were maybe going to provide something, and I certainly haven't, so apologies.
Well, I think this one is like 321, the original issue.
I see your comment. Yeah, 321.
Right. So I think we basically already had coverage, like text that says what our target was. There was some discussion, like I did get a question about like how soon should we tell the project who the champion is, and I think probably sooner the better. So we probably need a second revision to handle that. And I guess separately from that, Joy, I do remember some discussion about there was the discussion about should we have something like a ticket tracking system that would notify people or whatever when more than like if there was necessarily for 2 days that somebody would get a reminder or something, but I'm not sure we talked beyond that, right?
Right, that's right. That's right. We did get into a conversation on tooling that, which of course we did, that went sideways.
But I'm not sure that other than like saying we've got the times covered, I don't know if this needs like more concrete, like, hey, here's the next step, or we should close this and have other issues open. I'm not quite sure what the best thing is.
Well, we could ask Toby if he feels his comment has been addressed, because I think that was the last thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just from my perspective, going through the whole process, moving into the OpenJS Foundation earlier, like the last couple of weeks, I mean, I'm lucky that I've been in those meetings with you all for a while. I have good connections and good back channels, so I sort of had an idea of what was going on. But like, I didn't know who my champion was for like quite a while. I know that there were changes, and I sort of found out because people were telling me, through like, again, back channels. And I don't think that's the way it should work. I don't think that's a great process. I mean, it worked fine for us because I was lucky to be in that position. But any project that, wouldn't have the networking relationship I had would have been really in the dark at this point.
So do we think that we should land 321 and then review it with you for your feedback and areas that things are opaque that we can surface in a new PR? Or
so I'm actually, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead, Toby.
Yeah, no, so I'm actually, like I've been traveling quite a bit, and I'm not really up to date with what is what. And I'm kind of happy with, any kind of process on your side that you're the most comfortable with, and me helping out afterwards to try to, use the experience of like AMP joining to help make the whole process better. So whichever one you're more comfortable with, I'm happy with, and I'll have more time from next week onwards to actually focus on that a bit more.
Okay.
Yeah, I think landing 321 and then a PR to add in some more bits. And maybe, Toby's an ideal person to kind of go through and say, okay, which pieces, like I don't think we have anything in there that says, we say there's a champion, but we don't say when does the champion contact the project. And, it should probably say as soon as they're appointed, right? They should then reach out and say, hey, I'm your champion. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll keep you up to date, right?
Yeah, something like that would be ideal. I mean, just having a process for it where, it's clear for everyone, including, CPC members, what the next steps are, so that there's no, sort of like weird time where like no one really knows what's going on the outside. I mean, I'm sure that you know what's going on, right? But from the outside, it's like completely opaque, and it feels really weird.
Well, I'm not even gonna the question I got was from one of our champions for a later application was like, well, when should I reach out to them? So it's I think both external and internal, it'd be good to continue to add to that progression document to make it clear.
Right, and the other aspect to that is from the outside, if you actually know that these steps are happening, it's it's soothing, right?
Yep.
You know that that's what's going to happen next, and you're sort of waiting for that. And it's also something you can ask about. You can just reach
Yep.
out and say, is there a champion? Who is it, right?
Yep.
Like if you don't know what the next steps are at all, it's really hard to even ask those questions.
Yeah.
321, I think, that was one of the ones, if I remember correctly, we need to just get the board's okay, and then we'll land that.
Yeah. So I think that would be good. Either Toby, once you get done traveling and stuff, if you could kind of review your experience against the documentation and just take some notes, and one of us can either go over it with you, or we can figure out the best way to integrate that. And then I suggest we talk with the current applicants about how their process is going and capture their feedback and iterate on this in real time.
That sounds great. Yeah, and I'm happy to do that either way, and I'm happy to submit a pull request if that's like the best venue later on.
That would be great. All right, with that in mind, do we think that we can close administering project applications for now and then look to future pull requests and issues?
I guess it depends on whether we think we need to have tooling in place. Basically, Miles' comment is, I'd like us to commit for some sort of administration and monitoring.
I feel like we could keep this open, not only to just ensure that we close the related PR, but also to address that tracking / tooling question.
Yeah, like a really big thing that I cared about and why I was talking about that was I just really want to make sure that we have some sort of observability into this. We want to make sure that we're responding to all of the people who are applying in a timely fashion and things don't just get lost. And if we rely on, non-automation for this, we will lose track of stuff.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense. I've got a comment drafted here that we're going to keep it open for our discussion to close PR 321, and then we'll look further at tracking tool in question in Miles' original description, just so that there's kind of an update on this ticket. Did I say ticket? Okay. Great. And thanks, whoever's helping work on notes. We may want to just clarify who's talking in different instances, but I appreciate notes being taken in general. If folks can help out with that, that'd be great. Great. So moving on to the next issue is move COC proposal to stage 2. If I am not mistaken, it's opening here. This is one of the ones that we are taking to the board, or has been.
No, this is just because it's going to stage 2. It's just internal.
That's right. So
I think we discussed it last time. I think it's ready to be landed, but I think last time we said we'd wait until this meeting.
Yep.
To do so.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's right. So the plan from last week was that we would merge it in this meeting. Unless anyone has any objections. We've got lots of approvals on there. It's been open for 22 days, lots of comments addressed. Do we feel like we can, are there any objections to moving it forward? All right, I will squash and merge.
Okay, and then I guess the next action will be to open a PR to move it to stage 3.
Yep. Great. Okay, so moving on. Responsible security disclosures. This issue was open 27 days ago. We talked about it last week. There's some reference from the security working group a week ago. But if I'm not mistaken, well, so I know Brian opened a PR and I closed it this morning about adding like help section to our repo around like how you might get in touch with people. Where did we land in terms of this particular issue though, and how far we want to go with responsible security disclosures?
Well, I think in this one, we were wondering if the security working group could help write a draft, and it sounds like Marcin has volunteered to do that.
Okay.
So I think we should wait till we see what that looks like. And then, you know, ideally it's something we can just say like, here's our guidance for what projects within the OpenJS Foundation should do. You know, if it turns out to be that we look at and say, well, you know, maybe it's good advice, but not something we want to recommend too strongly, we can decide what to do. But having something concrete that we can read through, I think is a good thing to wait for. And then we can say, yeah, okay, that's just good practice. Therefore, we should ask that everybody does that, or this is a recommendation, or whatever sort of strength in terms of suggesting that it be followed or not.
Okay, makes sense. I threw the issue in the chat, the security working group issue. So all right, so we'll get a draft at some point in the next few weeks, and then you know, we can discuss about how we'd move further on that.
Yep.
All right, so moving on. So those are all the agenda items in particular. The next on the list is the going through the post bootstrap board. And I think it might make sense to go through all the boards that we have open. 24 minutes in, so we've got some time here. The post bootstrap housekeeping board is project 3. I'll drop a link in the chat for those who want it. Nothing is in progress. You know what? I'm going to drag add admin policy docs to in progress, as it is on my agenda, and I expect to get it soon. And that's bringing some things from the Node Foundation over to the OpenJS Foundation around admin policy docs. So I will work on that today. The next item in the to-do column is define and document a style guide for the foundation name. This has been open for a while. Okay, so last week, progress, the comment is progress has been happening at the board, nearing the finish line. Is this, I assume nothing's happened on this, but is this on you know, the radar for progress with the board at the upcoming meeting?
Yes, it is. We had 1 or 2 minor changes to the documents, to the various legal documents that the board's approving, and asked them to get back to me middle of this week if there are any further changes or requests for time to review these things. If not, the vote's going to get started. That is the gating factor here.
Okay. I added board approval required label, which I don't know if that label is really accurate, but in all instances that I've been adding it, but if it's kind of waiting on the board, I'm adding that there. Sorry, is it getting really loud here?
It's a little loud, but it's okay. But yes, that's a good label to have on there, because we do need to have the documents approved by the board before we can do the downstream work like this.
Okay, great. Okay, so next on the list is review foundation infrastructure. And of course, this is sort of ongoing. As Joy mentioned earlier, there's an infrastructure meeting soon.
I think we can put this in progress because I think this is an in progress item, not a to-do item.
Okay, great. And nothing really to update there. We'll wait till close meeting and
yeah,
check back on that.
Should have more updates on this next week. I've just been a bit occupied.
Yeah. Okay, great. So there's a waiting on the board / foundation column here. I don't know. Wow. Yeah, that's probably getting really loud. Sorry. I don't know if this is, you know, if I should add labels for this for board approval required. This is project directed funding and the JSF CLA bot. I feel like, yeah, I don't know. Project directed funding, is that something that we should just leave alone for now, and you know, when we are able to, we'll talk more about that, or what's our people's feeling?
Yeah, for both of those, I would add waiting on the board.
Okay. I will do that while you all get to hear my crazy noise. Labels. Come on.
Yeah, it's not so much board approval required, though. It's like waiting on the board makes sense, but
yeah, I wondered if I should change that label to be waiting on the board rather than board approval required.
yeah, I think waiting on the, like, they're two separate things. In one case where there is board approval required, like if it's something that the charter requires them to approve, but then separately they're just, you know, like we're waiting for legal advice or whatever. So I think it's worth making that distinction.
Okay,
or
so
if using one, just using waiting.
All right. Does anybody have a strong opinion about that? Two labels or one?
I think two labels, you know, because I think what on the project directed funding piece, we really are looking for from the board is just more of a guidance on like strategy and how to go about having this conversation based on, you know, their needs and concerns. So that's my 2 cents. We don't even have a proposal for anything here because what we're looking for is more the, you know, strategic conversation to be had about it.
Makes sense to me. I think, you know, two labels is not a big deal. So I can go back and try to iterate on that. Great. All right. So that covers that project board. I'm going to click over to the other one, which is the project onboarding, which is project 4. I don't know if there's really much to discuss here. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Yeah, looking at this, do we want to go through these tickets, or are there anything in particular we want to talk about? You know, maybe the to-do column.
The one thing that stands out in my mind is there aren't issues there for some of the announced projects.
Yeah, so I was going to say, I think there's tickets that need to be created for our new incubating projects. And I'd also like to just consider going ahead and putting tickets for all of our projects now that we have like where does the list live and like the, you know, issue template questions figured out, because some of our current projects we've got in progress, and then a lot of them have been on standby kind of these questions. And I'd love to have a ticket for every project in here right now.
Agreed.
Yeah, if it's time to start asking, I think we have one which is somewhere, which is like ask projects to go through the process. If we're at that point now,
yeah, and
to do that, and then
talking to projects, kind of having just quick 30-minute conversations with the leads on where they're at with certain things, but that's not all captured in these issues, and I think it should be.
Yeah, I can see on the left, 282 is ask projects to start updating references to docs and CPC repo, etc.
All right. Do we have, I mean, does anyone want to volunteer for throwing some tickets in there for all projects, and maybe just doing a review of the board? I see some reviews kind of happening in real time here.
I'm happy to continue with this. I just been a little bit, slammed the last couple weeks, but I'm happy to do that with the project leads in the next week.
And I guess the CPC members maybe should be tagged too, right? Like the voting CPC members for each of the projects that are going to be helping out with those, it seems like.
I've been trying to assign members from the projects who are also part of the org here to these tickets as well, where it's possible.
Great. Yeah, I can try to get in there if I get some free time as well. Review and update and add tickets. So that concludes our work for the day, I think. Is there anything else that people wanted to review or talk about in public session?
Well, if I may just quickly again thank everyone in the CPC for meeting the deadline to actually ship, make the announcement, sorry, for AMP on time. Like, you don't know how thankful I am for all the work that you did. So I just wanted to say that, well, through voice. So thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Toby, for being a real active member through the process, and congratulations to you and the team.
Thank you.
All right, great. So maybe we call it a session and a public session, and then we drop into a private session. I think having more time for private discussions might be beneficial. So if there are no objections, that's what I suggest.
I have a really stupid question here. What's my current status?
That's a very good question. I
actually have plenty of things to do, so I'm happy to leave. But I'm still curious about what my current status is.
I was supposed to tell you to go away.
Okay, so I'm going away.
Well, no, but I think it's a good question. So you would PR yourself in as a regular member, but I don't know if there's any guidance on what the status of the project needs to be. Like, in an incubating project, I assume can become a regular member.
Okay, so I'll go back also to AMP and see exactly who wants to do what, and I'll come back with more clarity. And if you can get more clarity on your side, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much all for your time, and have a nice rest of the meeting. Bye-bye.
If I can add to that, Toby, before you leave, or do we already lose Toby?
No, I'm still here.
I guess the two things that I would say is, like, I do not believe, like, when we drafted the charter and we drafted regular members, the membership requirements, I have to double check if that's in the charter or if it's in the governance, but it was specifically being active in a foundation project for 3 months, I think, was the requirement that we had on the governance for regular members.
Correct.
We can change the governance without requiring board approval. So really, if we want to allow incubating projects to have regular members, which I personally think is probably beneficial, we can simply offer a change to the governance and go through our process to get that approved, which would be 2 weeks or a meeting with quorum. And then, aside from that, there's nothing in the governance that stops you from showing up the meetings, being productive, being active. I think the only measurable difference that I can think of today would be being included in certain mailing lists.
Yeah, I think it is in the charter, to be honest, but I would agree. It's like, just come and participate, because we've allowed for that as a observer. And then separately, I think we need to decide, it is whether, an incubate, at what stage, like, is incubating was added after the beginning too, is that a stage where, regular members can nominate in? And if so, then it may not even require a change to the charter, right?
So looking at the charter right now, anyone who's been a member of one of the projects under the OpenJS Foundation for at least 3 months may request to become a regular member. So we have a couple options that we could do here. Like, one that we could do is actually, like, remove that text from the charter altogether about the qualifications of a regular member, move that to governance. That would just require sign off from the board about moving where that language lives. Alternatively, I think a reading of this, since we are saying that people need to be active in a project for at least 3 months, I could see a reading of this saying that, like, if a project itself hasn't been active in the foundation for 3 months, perhaps that's not reasonable.
I think my read would not, my concern wouldn't be that the project's been in for 3 months, but that whether incubation, because like there hasn't been a formal vote to say the project is joining or not.
Yeah.
Until the, like, until you're an at-large, a growth or impact, there hasn't been that actual vote. So I could see the concern more being that until that happens, you're not, the project is not necessarily part of the OpenJS Foundation, depending on how you read the wording, right?
And building on that, like, the application pipeline emails go to all the regular members. So is it appropriate to have representatives from projects that are not yet in the foundation on those email chains? I think is like a high level question that we need to answer. I think independent of this, Toby, like, you're invited to all these meetings, you're invited to participate wholly. Like, as I said, I think literally the only difference between showing up and participating and being a regular member right now is being on 1 or 2 email lists that are primarily about, like, private foundation business. So it should not affect your ability to be productive.
Yeah, I was essentially being silly, and I apologize for creating a 10-minute constitutional crisis in this meeting. Anyway, thank you all for being so welcoming.
Okay.
I'll leave the call right now. Take
Thanks.
care.
Bye.
Thank you, Toby. I think he does raise a good question, though. I think maybe we could clarify some of the language, because I think that sentence could be read either way. Like, the project needs to be in the foundation for 3 months or active in the project itself for 3 months, which I think the latter would make more sense. But I agree with.
Well, I'm not, like, I don't think that once you say yes to a project, they should immediately be able to have regular members.
Right, and also, like, I think there's a question there of, like, if you're going down the path of blocking regular membership for a project, then also is there some kind of time frame on voting membership? And if a project can have voting members, they should also be able to have regular members.
Right. Like, I don't think they're, like, so for example, until you become one of the impact or at large or whatever projects, I don't think, like, and this is because I think we added incubating, but at least my take would have been, like, until you get out of incubating, you're not part of the electing the voting members either.
So just a reminder, we're still broadcasting on YouTube.
Sure. Okay.
I don't know when we want to close the session.
Sure.
Just want to, before we start tangenting. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. We may want
Yeah.
to just take that as a separate in GitHub or something. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. So we'll call it a wrap then. I will stop streaming and we will go private. Thanks everyone on the stream. Cheers.